Hey, it's Matthew. I've got some tips for you on writing and writing with clarity. Writing is a real lost art over the years. And in fact, in the rare occasions I get an email that's written really well, I really actually take notice of that email because you just don't see good writing as much these days as you used to. Despite the fact that we're all using keyboards more than ever. Anyway, I'm going to give you some writing tips. My writing tips are based on my work over 20 plus years where I work with very complex things and I need to make them simple. So it's not really creative writing necessarily, it's really about clarity in writing. And I've written full books and user guides and technical manuals, proposals and business plans, designed software interfaces, instructions for board games and card games and other things. So I've written all sorts of types of things. And again, in most cases, it's all about taking a complex subject and creating clarity. So here's the mistakes I often see with inexperienced writers, and maybe being aware of these might help you as well. So one is that people tend to overwrite. So those people with less experience in writing tend to use too many words to say what you need to say. So when you're writing for clarity and simplicity, every word needs to have a purpose. And when you're proofreading your own work, if a word is not useful, get it out of there. Again, I'm not talking about creative writing. Creative writing, you might want to add some flowery language and other words to kind of set a scene and open up the imagination. But when you're writing for clarity, you want to be as brief as possible. And these days, most people, when they're reading instructions and directions, they want things that are simple, right? So take out any extra words. The other reason I see overwriting in inexperienced writers is because they're trying to say too much in the same sentence, right? They might actually have 2 or 3 thoughts. So what you have to do is basically just break that up. Each sentence should be one thought. Again, not talking creative writing, I'm talking about directions, simplicity, instructions, and clarity. So break it up into multiple sentences. In fact, the best way to write, I find, is to write in bullets. So it's get your ideas down in individual bullets, and then if you have to do more long-form writing where you actually have to take that and write it into a paragraph, then it'll be much easier once you have your ideas in the bullets, because then you can see how your sentences are going to flow. Although, if you can keep it in bullets, my recommendation to you, based on how people read and consume content today, I would recommend actually keeping it in bullets. And if you can do numbered bullets, that's even better. I think that it keeps people's attention a little bit more if it's numbered, but don't use numbers superficially. It should have a purpose. If there's a sequence, use numbers, or if it's a quantity, use numbers, but otherwise just use regular bullets. So breaking up, don't overuse words. Break up thoughts into multiple sentences or bullets. The third tip is consistency. So, if you can use a particular definition or term, use that same term and definition over and over again. Don't use a different word for it. Don't use different explanations for it. Use that same thing over and over again. Also, remove pleasantries. So, and by that I mean, this is something that's a phenomenon that's existed ever since computers seem to be created. You'll see directions like, please click here, or please do this. Get rid of the please. No one wants a please anymore. You could start your piece with please this or that, but when you're giving people directions, there's no please and thank yous. Just tell them what to do in as few words as possible. The final tip is if you're doing some long form writing, because again, people are not reading the way they used to read with any fullness. What you want to do is, if you have multiple paragraphs, in that first sentence, you want to capture the essence of the paragraph. So capture the essence in the first sentence of every single paragraph, because a lot of times people are skimming, they're browsing, and they may only be reading that first sentence. Almost like people only read headlines in many cases, and you want to make sure your headline is good. You want to do that with your paragraph. So the first sentence should summarize the key points of what you're going to explain in more detail in the paragraph. And so don't feel like you're repeating. So, sometimes you may say, well, I've already said that in the first sentence, so I don't want to say it in the rest. No, it's okay. It's okay to repeat, because again, you can't assume people are going to consume things in the way they used to or even understand them. So summarize in that first paragraph. You may even want to bold that paragraph. I like doing that in some like business plans and other long form documents. Bold that first paragraph, which is the most important summary key information of what's in the paragraph, and then use the next couple of sentences in the paragraph to actually explain that in more detail. Even if you're being repetitive in some aspects, I think you'll find it helpful. Anyway, I hope you'll find these tips helpful in your writing. I'm Matthew Giorgio.